So we're back to fear. So we
Yeah.
had our conversation and all right, goodbye. And then within 48 hours, you go, motherfucker. I'm
Within
terrified.
48 hours.
And what does this fear consist of?
I think it consists of, I mean, a word I don't like to use, but that just came up and I just halted from saying it.
Right.
Was overwhelmed. I think it was an overwhelming reality. I think
I would think that was putting it nicely. I was a little overwhelmed. They just told me I had ovarian cancer. I was a little overwhelmed.
Welcome to the Fifi Uncensored podcast, episode 21, part 3, with my dear friend Marie Zelenka, as we sit down and talk about the conversation no one ever has after one's cancer journey. And oh my God, who knew? And the laughter and the authentic share that ensues is something to sit down and take a listen. So grab that coffee and grab that cannoli, because here we go. Hi, gorgeous. Did you cut your hair? Is your hair pulled back?
I pulled it back.
It's got a really
I don't know. I kind of don't know what to do with.
This is a cool illusion. That's why I asked. Because the way it was,
so weird.
I mean,
I don't know what to do with my hair, and you don't have any hair. What the fuck?
I mean, we can start there. I have to tell you.
But I mean, isn't that so bizarre? Your hair fell out, and I'm sitting here going, I don't know what to do with my hair.
I think about that all the time, Marie.
Like it's like a problem, you know? Like my my problem today, I don't know what to do with my hair. Life does go on.
Yeah. No, it's very like, I can hear that I feel not here, like I can hear. But as you walk around without the hair on your head, you go, I wonder what they're thinking with that gorgeous head of hair. I wonder what they're thinking with that head of hair. I wonder what their problems are regarding their hair. It's never been something that I walked around thinking about until I lost my
right? Until you lost your hair. And now I'm going, I don't know what to do with my hair.
But look at, I mean, we also know the power of how it affects us and the why and why
I'm sorry.
Well, why people but why people have so much misconception around it too, because they see finished product. They see people that are held up for 12, 16, 18-hour days, have teams built, so we have these really twisted conversations in our head about that stuff also.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And of course, they have no idea. I had a conversation with somebody the other day who said, she loves watching. God, I didn't even know it existed. Something about real estate agents in New York.
The reality shows around real estate agents with like big ticket properties. Oh yeah, this shit's. I was thinking about this,
and I was trying to explain to her, like, okay, so there's nothing really real about a reality show. It's a script. It's just like anything else. It's scripted. It's just a cheaper way of making television because whatever. Supposedly. I said, but the fact that there's a hair and makeup artist, that there's a wardrobe person there, that there's all, there's a prop person because houses are decorated a certain way and there's names attached to that, and that's, you have to clear all that, and if you don't have the clearance, all the art needs to be taken off the walls, other stuff that has been cleared needs to be put up. There's your reality. It's not there. There's no reality. It's you're being messed with. And she's just sitting there listening to me. And I've had this conversation with multiple people. And she's just sitting there listening, or is she even listening? She's looking at me, and I hear her think, "You're not ruining my experience." This is my
That's my red rose.
This is not
That's my red rose. That's
This
my
is
diamond
it.
ring.
This is
Don't
this
take
is
it.
how I like to view the world. You're not ruining my experience now with this knowledge that you have about reality TV making.
I
Damn
mean,
you.
it's funny that you mentioned the reality television making and the and the illusion and the delusion, and because reality television, though I'm sure it's been around forever, really took off when the 1988 writers' strike occurred in Hollywood. Reality television, like I think it's when Cops came on board or something, like really like that kind of reality.
Didn't MTV start it with the Real World?
It did, but reality television, well, that was music video world. I'm talking about for television in the sense of like when reality took over.
Right.
Those were a couple of shows. This is like a different kind of, and that happened again 15 years ago, which is when this whole flood of shows have come forward since.
Right.
How do you
Yeah,
think the Kardashians became so goddamn big and rule the world?
Right.
The epitome of, and everybody that's following like Honey Boo Boo and
and that's where we become obsessed with, even more obsessed with makeup and hair and clothing and bodies and shapes and how are we supposed to look, high heels and what, flats, sneakers, what are we all supposed to do? And we forget that when you look at photos, when there's, photos of a fashion photo shoot, the model is probably pinned and held together by, anything the stylist could find at that moment to make the jacket or the shirt do the perfect something.
Yeah.
And the hair's being tweaked and makeup is being added like every time there's a moment to adjust something, and it's a constant. And we look at these images and what should I do with my hair?
It's true. It's so true. And people, you're right. I remember when I would come home, I remember coming home from, like, of all things, even though I was doing a lot of fashion editorial, coming home from Playboy stuff and being like, I've just been with this woman for 3 days, making positions that look, excuse me, fuckable. Right. And she has just like been, not used and abused, but used in ways that you wonder why we have such issues. And that my thoughts were, this was the late 80s when I was having those thoughts going, what am I contributing to like the world out there, including the fashion editorial, including the commercial world, including all those things where you went, well, of course, people's expectations are askew. Well, of course, people have so many dysfunctions. And that was the 80s when I was going, oh my God, what am I contributing to and why? I mean, I love the art of transformation. I love the power of transformation, but the reality versus the illusion versus the keeping up with, not the Kardashians, but the individual in the moment that makes you imagine that that's how you're supposed to roll out of bed looking, when in fact, pull back the curtains and there's a whole goddamn team.
Yeah.
This is why this, again, this world is also askew because we put these individuals, not to say that they're not talented, up on pedestals, but it's taken lots of people to put individuals up on pedestals. and to keep them in those positions. Not
Right.
to say that they don't have the power for themselves to do it on their own. I'm saying the machine has built it into those empire
Well,
mentalities.
yeah, and the machine of PR and the marketing around all that, because you can put on makeup and do your hair and wear pretty clothes, but if there's not a whole team of marketing and PR behind you pushing you out into the world, then there's nothing.
Truth.
What should I
Marketing
do
is
with my
everything.
hair? And you don't have hair. And is today shouldn't you have had chemo today?
So today would have been the third week. Wow, Marie, that is
Yeah,
so fascinating you bring that up.
today would have been chemo day.
Today would have been chemo day. And it's so crazy you bring that up. This is going to sound so random. Today would have been chemo day, which I didn't even realize 3 weeks since the last round and the final round, knock wood. And it is. I thought this morning how it's been. Randy raised the awareness that it had been 4 years since our dog Nikki had passed away.
Today.
And yes, it was actually yesterday, but the reason why I was thinking about it today, interestingly enough, was because I think it's all encompassing, is that thinking about the yard, thinking about him passing, thinking about how this Nikki's dog park had just been created the day before we found out he was diagnosed with cancer, and how he passed away then 5 months later, yesterday. And he, interestingly enough, in my healing work, so to speak, is a guided angel, so to speak. They show up in all different forms for each and every one of us if you go there. And he's the one that always shows up like, hey, mom, like let's go do this and figure this shit out. And I thought it was so fascinating that he was diagnosed in November, passed in May. I was diagnosed in November, and I'm alive in May. And the like, here, I'm going to make sure this doesn't happen. And I felt that transference this morning, and that strange, obscure, esoteric connection and feeling, and was so wowed by the power of it, and was so aware of that moment for myself in that gratitude. I'm grateful I'm not in a chemo room today. Right. I don't think I could stomach it.
I
truly don't think I could stomach it.
Yeah.
No, I said that to my social worker this morning. I can never do that again. I will not do it again.
Right.
I can't stomach it.
Probably weirdly enough, you would have done it had you had to do another, if they would have said, okay, it's gonna, because you did 5 rounds, 6 rounds,
six, yeah.
If they would have said it was going to be 8, you would have done 8.
I would have been mindfully programmed.
Sure.
But I have left that train.
Yep, you have. So how's it been?
Well, so it's really interesting because since you and I last spoke, and an incredible conversation we had, and this is the continuum of that, it was interesting because you kept asking me about fear.
Right.
You kept asking me about the minute.
God damn it, when is that fear going to show? God.
And I just want you to know, upon doing your research,
I'm there.
About doing your googly research, fear showed up like the next day in the form of eating my emotions.
Right, really?
Oh, big time, huge.
Oh, really?
Oh wait, let's go. Oh, remember when you were 3 and you climbed up in the cupboards in the middle of the night because you were trying to nurture yourself? And I went into what the fuck have I just been through?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So my body pendulumed, and this is one of the things that I don't remember if we officially talked about or not, even though I've produced the show. It's like I've listened. I My body when I started this whole thing had been in a really healthy state, knock wood, because I dropped all this weight over 50 pounds, 53 at that point. I was in a really great space, then diagnosed. And then I was like, seriously, really? Like, what? Like, well, can we give this pattern up of getting into a good place? And then, because
Right.
that was kind of what it was feeling like for me without feeling victimy. And,
Mhm.
and so from that position, I was concerned about how my body would be affected through this period. And knock wood, ultimately did pretty well considering the amount of steroids that are being put in your body and the amount of fluids that are being shoved in your body and
Yeah.
all this shit you have no control over. And
Steroids being prednisone, that kind of stuff,
all of
or
it to keep you from being nauseous while getting the infusion and then post
good.
infusion for at least 48 hours. So,
Mm,
and
mm,
then not to mention all the chemicals that are in your body for God knows how long to
right,
stave off this microscopic possibility. So,
right.
so all that collectively to say the aha was post finishing now 3 weeks ago
Hmm.
and then getting through the side effects, which I shared was really bad and didn't come out of it until like the Thursday you and I had spoken, which
Hmm.
was the week after.
Right.
And then after that, that Saturday night, I went to the grocery store. Randy was working. I went to the grocery store and came home and basically sat down and just started like went into a really old pattern unconsciously and just
You
kind of
went to the grocery store and bought
I went to the
stuff.
grocery store to
Like,
buy us stuff for the house for things for several
all right.
days,
And then you
just
just
get us
happened
stuff.
to, yeah.
And then I came home and I just kind of like indulged. And I indulged in a way that felt very different than I had for a very long time.
Hmm.
And it wasn't like if you were flying the wall, you'd see Felicia surrounded by like bags of chips and cakes and like, and you could barely see her from like the top of her bald head. No, it wasn't like that. So, but for me, it was like, can you stop this action from happening? No, not right now.
Right. Yeah. Right. No, I
And
need this.
no,
I
I'm
need it. Yeah.
soothing my mental state of what the fuck just have I gone through?
Yeah. Um, does that, I can't remember the T in halt. There's something with AA, NA,
Yeah,
CAA, whatever the A. Um, uh, there's a word they use, halt. Halt is
yeah.
hungry, angry, lonely, and what is T?
Maybe
Tired,
trust.
tired,
Okay, tired.
tired.
I would say trust over tired.
Yeah, no, it's tired. So it's kind of, so I think, maybe what happened is you, and who am I to even say this, but you were diagnosed with this life-threatening disease, and uh, and you instantly went into, as one does, into I have to fight for my life, and so every hormone that helps us fight, adrenaline, cortisone, God, blah, 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 blah. I'm sure
Adrenals.
there's a ton of
Yeah,
them that are being produced at that time, and it just goes on and on and on. And in a weird way, you're high
yeah,
because of the product, all these hormones raging through your body. You're kind
yeah,
of experiencing a high, and you have to because you're fighting.
yeah,
And now so you finished the whole process. You went through the whole process. And you did it with flying colors, and you came out and yes, I did it, and fuck this cancer, and away with it, and we're done, and I'm healed, and blah blah. And then you, oh, you rest, and then you're hungry, you're angry, you're lonely, you're tired, and you go to the grocery store, and God damn it, mama deserved it. And you did, and you did. And it's good that you, at the same time, you're halting yourself while you're doing it. You're actually halting yourself, trying to stop yourself. You didn't maybe not
Yeah,
succeed.
it was questionable there for a few days.
You try, you're at least you're trying, and you're aware. Okay, this is typical Felicia. This is what I do when I'm not happy or when I'm tired, whatever, this is what I do. So good for you for recognizing it and being aware of it so you can modify it and, yeah, and be kind to yourself at the same time, of course, and allow yourself to have that one thing that maybe perhaps you shouldn't have, all right, fine. You'll figure it out later. It's fine.
Yeah, I'd have to say I'm definitely in the figure outable mode.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
definitely in the recognize, heal, recover, figure outable,
Yeah.
be kind, be gentle, but be real and be honest. And I thought post our conversation, oh, here's the fear. Oh, this is it. Oh, this
Yeah.
is how it's going to show up and act. Oh, this is okay. Wow. All right. I didn't see that coming. Okay. Okay. Now what are we going to do now? And what I was saying earlier, because the body went through a pendulum of response to the chemicals when you go through side effects and the nausea and then the recovery and then the prep, and now you're back in it.
And
My
also,
body,
also the amount of the adrenaline, the what I was talking about, those hormones being produced
yeah,
simultaneously while all these other chemicals are entering your body. So it's mayhem in there. It's craziness.
full on, full on mayhem, and definitely you are in your own endorphin kind of like non-reality reality, like,
Yeah.
because it is a functionality of like a getting through it that you can't, you don't even know you're doing, you're doing, but you don't realize the level of what it's taking to make that
Right.
happen in the manner that it is happening, and the commitment that it took to like do all that. And in addition to that, like, you know knowing, like in the current moment of us recording this, that it was okay. So the diagnosis, you had the surgery, you've gone through the chemo, you come out of it. Now you have this moment of what the fuck just happened.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Mm. Yeah.
And so grateful to be on the other side. And yes, my body literally went from like, it would go from like 146 to 152 3, and then it would go down to 145, and then swing back in, and as high as, I say as high, meaning from where I was gauging where I'd started, 155, cut to when I finished this whole accumulative, my body went up to 160. And for me, that may not
Okay.
be a lot for a lot of people, but for me, who's trying to stay healthy, keep the weight off my frame, eventually lose more weight, not eventually, hopefully sooner than later. That was always my goal for health and wellness reasons. And it's not about being caught up in numbers or whatever. It really is a bigger picture. It's my joints, it's my organs.
Yeah.
I don't have a thyroid. I was kicked into menopause with radiation. I had iodine radiation 10 years ago when I wasn't menopausal. We talked about this. Now, my uterus, I've had a full-on hysterectomy. Am I a woman? Fucking yes, I'm a woman. Am I functional in all manners, from head, heart, toes, and everything in between? Yeah, absolutely. And I don't want to abandon myself through all of this, which is not to say I have or I am. I think what I'm expressing is very relatable.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to think that, and I do relate it too. I mean, we all have addictions. That's the truth. Our
Yep.
personalities as humans, we are all capable of having things that we do, whether
Yep.
it's sex, alcohol, food, shopping, whatever. We do.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that my tool has been food all my life. And it wasn't just growing up in a Sicilian Jewish household. It was like, no, that really was the thing that, unconsciously nurtured me but not because it harmed me by the fact that it did other things. But the many, many messages becomes an cumulative of like, am I valuable? Am I not valuable? Am I welcome? Am I not welcome? It's all these things. So you get
Mm-hmm.
to this point now where you've gotten to a fucking life-threatening disease
Mm-hmm.
and you want to just go, holy shit, I'm alive. And that's what's fucking important, not the goddamn number on the scale.
Right.
But I'm the kind of individual that has very easy chemical responses to what I put in my mouth.
Mm-hmm.
And that is not to say like you live on a pea. No, it's to say that that's what I've learned through going through the things that my body's gone through. And sometimes I do just want to put everything in my mouth. Not really.
Right. But yeah.
Things that are easy. I always, it's not a running joke. I make the correlation that we were raised at the time that easy was the thing that was starting to come into play. It wasn't, even though I was raised around a lot of people who cooked, there were also things that were starting to be made into quick packaging. And I somehow went for quick satisfaction, quick nurturing, quick reaction. And that is a programming that I learned consciously at 3, if not earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And you can break all the chains you want. And I think in moments like this, it was just like, oh, there she is.
Yeah.
Shocking.
Yeah. Yeah, there she is. I read something quite interesting on the subject of addiction.
Yeah.
And, like you said, we all have our addictions, whatever it is,
Mm-hmm.
it could be with food, it could be with drugs, it could be with alcohol, it could be with obsessive disorders, having to check his drawer. Did I lock the door? Did I lock the door? That's also,
Mm-hmm.
it's all
Mm-hmm.
addictions.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody gave me the book What the Bleep Do We Know, and said, hey, do you know about this book? And I said, well, I saw the movie. I think I was stoned out of my mind when I saw it. And I saw it after when I was not
I
stoned.
think that's
But
apropos. I really think that's what's
did you,
appropriate.
what?
Sorry.
Did you?
I said I think that was apropos. Go ahead. Bet you were
Apropos.
stoned when you saw the movie.
Apropos. But and I saw it both stoned and not stoned. And both times I just was like, what the bleep? What the fuck? It's so beyond, but it's great. I don't know. Have you
Yeah.
seen it? Have you seen the
I've
movie?
not seen What the Bleep. I was a part of making the movie I Heart Huckabees that I think has a very similar kind of, from what I understand, similar but different maybe,
It's
clearly.
all metaphysical
And this is metaphysical.
lines, right?
Yeah.
So okay, so somebody gave me that book. I said, well, this is interesting. I've seen the movie, blah blah blah. I'm not sure if I see it. I'm not sure, but yeah, I'd love to. I'd love to read. I'd love to look at this book. So she gave it to me, and I opened it up, and I opened it on the page of. I'm left-handed, so when I open up a book, I always open it up back to front. Just because you're left-handed, that's what you do. A
It's
book is
very, very Hebrew, like you're reading the Torah.
it's very Hebrew, but right-handed people open up a book and you go from front to back, and a left-handed person goes back to front. That's just best is what we do, right? So so I open it up and here it is, addictions. And I thought, well, I guess that's the first chapter I'm going to be reading about. It's always a fascinating subject to me, being the addict that I am myself. And so they dive into like the nitty gritty. And they talked about addiction, what addiction, certain, these habits, these thoughts, these what feelings, emotions, whatever comes up when we do something, at that time, your brain releases a peptide. So for instance, you're 3 years old and you're not feeling something's not right. You have no idea because you're 3 years old. You have no idea.
I can't fix the shit between my parents, and I can't save them, and I don't know if I'm being seen and heard, so I'm going to eat. Right.
So I'm going to eat, and that's going to give me a certain feeling. It's going to give me something happens that makes it for you, so you can deal with the situation at hand. And so at that moment, so when you do something, something innocent like that, a peptide is being released into the bloodstream, and all your cells take from the bloodstream what they want, and they also take some of this peptide that comes along. And if you make this into a habit, you're 3 years old, you do this and start doing this every day. You become addicted on cellular level. This is what the metaphysical world, science is proclaiming, is to have discovered that on a cellular level, we're addicted. So now, years later, what could happen is that, and this happens on a cellular level, there's an emotional state happening within you. And your cells have been deprived because you've been like going. You've been taking care of yourself. You've been losing all this weight. And then boom, here's ovarian cancer. And so you have not been giving into all these old habits. So your cells are kind of like going through, they're going through a abstinence,
yeah, where is she? Why isn't she feeding us?
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you go through, when you're in the state that you're now in, this is their chance to go, hey, we want some of that peptide. We want some of that shit. And so it's on a cellular level that you are just sort of being forced to, I'm going to the grocery store. I'm going to the wrong aisle. I'm not supposed to be in this aisle, but here I am. Oh, how did I get here? Oh God, now it's in my cart. Oh, and now I'm putting it in my grocery bag. Oh, Jesus Christ. And I'm sitting on the couch and I'm eating it and I'm doing it. It's just fascinating stuff that we're just sort of led by on a cellular level. We want this peptide. Give us this peptide. Give us this. We're going to send you to the grocery store now because you're weak. You're weakening. We feel it. You're weakening. We're sending you to the grocery store. We got her now. She's going to give us, because then once you start eating, it's giving you this feeling, whatever it is, whatever emotion is being, is being released in your body, which then subsequently, takes care of the rest. And here comes all the things that your cells want and need. And it's done.
Yeah. And I think that in those moments and in that moment, and going back to our original conversation about, and your question originally about like going through cancer and fear and how did I manage that and so forth. And then how this came up after our conversation, like dramatically speaking, like within I think a 48-hour period. Yeah,
Right.
it was.
Right.
And I was like, oh, well, that door got kicked open really well. Thank you.
Fuck.
And
Fuck.
I feel like it was like the fight or flight shit. And I feel like it was, oh God, I can let my hair down now, but yet can I, like, yes, you can, but oh God. And then I think it is the knee jerk reaction. I think it's a whole snowball of all those things, your peptides, your cellular conversations, and your cellular programming. And I think it's, I mean, could I have just been like, oh, I'm going to just do chicken broth, bone broth for like the next,
No, because it doesn't. It's the act of doing, because what you were doing when you were 3 years old, it was a sneaky thing. You were climbing
yes,
into cupboards.
it was like having an affair and nurturing myself through food.
Right.
It was
So
my
it was
first affair.
right. And so now you find yourself doing it. Randy's not home. Not that, I mean, when Randy's home, you would have done it also, but maybe
True.
that was like even another added element to the story. And when you were 3, you were scared that your parents were gonna not make it in their marriage, that they were gonna get a divorce, and all the mess that was gonna, even at 3, you knew that was not fun. And
Yeah.
and so it's that same emotion. It's a whole different scenario, but the emotion is exactly the same. And
Hmm.
so that's what, I guess that was my question. This fear thing.
Yeah.
I remember when my mother was diagnosed with kidney cancer, I just thought, what the fuck?
Hmm.
What is this in your body? Like, invasion of the body snatchers. What that
Yeah.
must be terrifying to have that in you.
Yeah. I think it is. I think it is that you go, wow, what is it that causes this to happen?
Right,
Especially when you supposedly have no history of it in your family.
right.
What is going on in your world that allows for that to manifest?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, I even made statements today about like, whatever that is, there's no room for that anymore. There's never that there's been room for it, but I'm very clear, no, thank you. It's not happening. There's no room for it anymore.
Mm.
And, look at, what does that mean? Does that mean that there's toxic environments, things that have been caused by a series of events or individuals or actual chemical environment or combination of all of it? You
Yep.
know,
Yeah.
it's scientifically proven. And I'm not going to label anything or anyone, but I'm aware on a conscious level, whether you
Yeah.
want to call it metaphysical or real or
Right.
all the above.
Right. Right.
Yeah. And it is very interesting. And I mean, even, in my working with, as working as somebody who um, works with a lot of healers that are actual practitioners, and and talking about all these. I mean, I'm trying to remember, I think I did kind of go there with them, but it was, for me right now, I think at the end of it all, what I appreciate about this conversation and what I appreciate about how that chain of events occurred.
Mm-hmm.
And I could never have planned for
Right. Right.
wow. I was like, well, there she is at the door knocking. There's fear.
Yeah.
Let's just, let's try to swallow
And
her.
you were trying so hard, like, no, and it's no. You're trying so hard
Exhausting.
to keep it out, keep it outside. And you were doing a really great job. But I would assume it's not more than normal for that to occur and to experience too, because it's part of the deal.
I would imagine. And, I mean, just in talking to, for instance,
And
to like my train.
it opens up doors to investigate, like what you were saying, like, why did this show up in your life? What
Mhm.
happened that this occurred? And is it environmental? Is it chemical? Is it people? Is it what is it? It's a combination of the three and many more, but it's necessary to look at it, and your part in it too.
Oh, for sure. I think this is the key that I'm about to
Your reaction to toxic, whether that's chemical or people, it's the same. you
oh,
know, uh,
100. Yeah,
the
absolutely. Listen, and
toxicity.
we talked about like abuse, addiction, all those kind of things,
Hmm.
that starts to collect that. It's barnacles. It's
Yeah,
going to turn into something potentially else, even if you're not conscious of that possibility of occurring.
yeah,
Right.
right.
And I think I, I, I have come to allude, and it's interesting because in working with all these talented healers that I work with, and we, do all this work together. We just finished a course that we were doing for the last 8 weeks, where we gather together and do work together, and I got this random note, which I've never received before, from the head of it all, and I've worked with her since like 2018, and I think 2018 or 2019. And it was a very sweet note. It really had to do with her not wanting to bother me, but having witnessed this transformation of going
Hmm.
through this
Hmm.
last experience. And I've worked with her consistently since 2019. So she's definitely seen an arc of a period of time of things, life things. And she basically said, seeing you speak up, seeing you be your truth, seeing you, like, even to the point where I took off my hat, and showed the whole group, because I was relating it. We were talking about soul retrieval and soul connection, and what do we or don't we? Do we have any of that? Is that real? Is that metaphysical? What is that? Who believes in that? Who's experienced that? I happen to have, um, and my relatableness to like taking off my hat was one, being my presence and my truth, as and have seen. And I would be like that now, except I'm cold. So it's
Right.
that's why. But and I shared that at the moment, that though I know I'm a lucky woman that I didn't go through things like the Holocaust, there's a part of me that my soul, feels like, before I came into fruition of Felicia, that there was, I love the background, by the way, with Randy.
Isn't that
How
great? It's so great. He's appeared like a couple times. And I wondered, the first time I saw it, I was like, is that Randy?
it's like Benny Hill. With it's great movie making at its best. It's real. He framed up perfectly. Then just a shot at the hose. I mean, really, you can ask for better shit. Oh my God, that's classic. To the point where I've now forgotten what I was saying. That makes it even funnier. Oh my God,
Oh,
so good.
you were talking about the note, the sweet note.
Very sweet note. And she said, the truth is that you, in your line of work, can't be who you really are.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't think that I'm
Oh,
alone in
talking
that,
about
by the way.
Holocaust. You were talking
Well,
Holocaust.
initially I was using the example with all these guys in the
Right.
group, about taking off the hat and saying, you guys know me for this nice head of hair and whatever. And I'm like, what the many things have brought up for me, speaking of soul retrieval, is like the women who I feel like I watched a lot of Holocaust movies. Anyhow, I use this example of women who went through things that, didn't have expectations of going through, and you know, that I don't feel that is something that I'm carrying with me consciously. But in that moment, I never knew that I would have that experience of knowing what that felt like to be, I don't want to use the word degraded, but go through that experience of like being completely your most vulnerable self.
Yeah.
And I think that I've had other life experiences, like going through domestic violence or what have you, where you have those experiences or those light bulb moments that you're not looking to consciously experience and have, but you do if you're paying attention.
Right.
I think these are all examples of, are you paying attention kind of stuff. And again, nobody asked for cancer. But to the point of this letter and her saying, I feel like you're giving yourself the space to stand up, speak up, do the things that I've always been all my life. But I know in different ways I had to get quiet, like at 3 years old. What was I going to do? Get in between my parents who were probably arguing, and maybe it was even physical abuse, and I couldn't do anything about it. As a for instance, so instead I went and ate the food in the middle of the night to nurture the little Felicia that couldn't ask for the hug or the kiss because my parents were probably too like acting out or whatever.
Well, busy
and
with
so
themselves. Yeah.
Say that again.
Busy with themselves.
And so coming forward to now and getting this letter and her speaking, it was interesting because yes, getting to the bottom of how do you manifest this or to stop manifesting it. I need to be my truth. That's why I launched this podcast. I need to be able to be my strength, what I'm good at.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really good at being authentic.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mean that in an ego statement. I'm just really good at making like honest statements. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying I'm perfect at that, by the way. I've done a lot of, dishonest things throughout my lifetime. So, but nothing that's like, oh, she killed or, she harmed or no, I'd harm myself first in those dishonest moments. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Nobody being honest could say that they've not had dishonest moments. People white lie all the time.
Here's the gardener.
Rose petals that smells
completely random. First he's outside with those. Next thing he walks in, the yellow cup of rose petals, completely random. Randy random.
So delicious. I wish you could smell them.
The color is amazing.
Woo!
Thank you, Randy.
Oh, good times. Oh my God.
So you're fair. So we're back to fair. So we had our conversation and all right, goodbye. And then within 48 hours, you go, motherfucker.
Within 48 hours.
And what does this fear consist of?
I think it consists of, a word I don't like to use, but that just came up and I just halted from saying it. Was overwhelm. I think it was an overwhelming reality. I think
I would think that was putting it nicely. It was I was a little overwhelmed. They just told me I had ovarian cancer. I was a little overwhelmed. Really?
It's just so good.
That's all.
I always think I always think it's kind of funny when this conversation comes up with whomever. I never actually say, oh, and by the way, the leaking has stopped. From the moment I had surgery, that shit never showed up again. And I don't need to say it, but I think it's an interesting point of like, by the way, you don't have to live this way. I'm not saying that like that's everybody's issue when it comes to leaking, but
Right.
the overwhelm of like living with that, let alone finding out all the other shit that came forward out of all of that into
Right.
curiosity and wanting to get to the bottom of it was that thank God I wasn't off base. Thank God I was paying attention. Thank God I was speaking up and being my truth. Thank God
Mm,
I was persistent. Thank God I finally was heard. I know my husband heard me. Thank God.
mm-hmm.
He
Mm-hmm.
definitely, and Randy and I react to things very, very differently. So,
Mm-hmm.
and that's another thing when you're going through shit like this, whomever's in your life, everybody's affected.
Yep.
Everybody's going through their emotions.
Yeah.
Everybody's managing their emotions. Everybody is feeling their feelings. And it's not always going to be like in sync with each other.
Oh, no,
And
not at
that's a
all.
lot
No.
to
Yeah.
consider through it all. And it's
Yeah.
a big, major thing to shoulder on top of everything else.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not working.
People split up at moments like this. You wouldn't believe it. People split up, get divorced,
You're right.
while one is going through what you just went through. Uh,
You're right.
people people get divorced. Can you imagine? Nah, it's okay. I'm good. I'm out of here.
No, I couldn't imagine.
Could you imagine just even
No, I
coming up?
couldn't.
But
I
you
couldn't.
have to, I guess you have to respect that because there are people who truly are not capable of dealing and they leave.
But that's the thing. It's like, that's their form of trauma that they can't deal with. I mean, no,
Right.
does it make sense to me? No.
Oh,
But
unbelievable. Yeah.
I it never made sense to me to, continue to I mean, everybody's got who knows why people make the decisions they make? Who knows why? I think that there's a
Yeah,
lot of
and you
people that
can't,
have
I'm not judging anybody. It's just it's very unfortunate and it's very, yeah, God, to we're gonna get a divorce while one of us is going through a life threat fighting against the life-threatening disease. But it happens.
a
I
lot.
personally don't know anybody who went through that, but yeah, I've heard stories.
Yeah, but people are really good at abandoning
Chip.
their realities and their
Yeah.
responsibilities, and that's why there are addictions, and that's why
Yeah.
there are divorces, and that's why there are affairs, and that's why there are plenty of kids raised without two parents or whatever. How like, I'm sure there's a whole lot of things I'm missing, and dysfunction and arrested development and blah blah
Yeah.
blah blah.
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
who knows why people can't stick with things when they have a responsibility to it, whether it's good, bad, or otherwise. Listen, there's
Yeah.
reasons why I would support getting out of situations, but I can't speak on that because I think that that's a pretty selfish thing. But who am I to say? Like, I don't know what the situation, if it's I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't know, you know.
And
Um,
it didn't happen. Randy did not get up and say, you know what, Felice,
no,
I'm out of here. That's
no,
it.
no,
I'm gone. Can't deal with
no.
this.
But he shouldered a lot, for sure. He
Yeah.
shouldered a lot. He shouldered, you know, uh, carrying out a lot of things that we do together, and he,
Yeah.
and being the sole contributor to the household, really,
Hmm.
and gave me space to say, you know, it chemo is not going to be an easy ride. And we were both communicating all the time, like knowing that I was supposed to start the first week of January. And then the reality, as I mentioned to you before, was, oh shit, I really have no idea what to expect. And how do you, like, I'm a pretty, as you know, like, and without sounding repetitive, I know that, I mean, I proved it going through domestic violence. I still kept showing up to my fucking job. I still kept a roof over my head with 3 dogs. I mean, things that, like, should have, I mean, for defending myself, I could have ended up in the woman's jail downtown, like, shit, because I, like, stayed alive in ways that, like, so, like, this to me was like, I mean, I'm not, like, comparing, like, trauma to trauma, but I'm just like, um, one, no more trauma. There's no more room for it. Like, I've just, the box is full. I've got plenty to share. I've got plenty of
Yeah.
empathy and perspective.
Yeah.
No more, no more. And the reality and the awareness that comes through and from it is, yeah, I do need to be my truth. Yeah, I do need to be um, doing things that you know, of who I was when I was a little girl, the things that, like, are my pure true self, that people that with that in my life stories, since, like, I can formulate into being, like, just being my authentic self. And I feel like I've done a lot of, and I think I said this to you before, I feel like I've done a lot of fitting square pegging around whole shit.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm not
Yeah.
saying that, again, I'm alone. I'm not saying that is, I think that a lot of people have to do that. And I think that we need to all stop doing that. I think we all need to, like, figure out how to
Yeah.
be ourselves in our environments that are a healthy example of living one's life versus um, forgetting who we are and abandoning our truth and living a lie and maybe sadly getting things like cancer to, like, make one go, like, it's not like I haven't had enough of my own wake up calls,
Mhm. Mhm.
but, like, getting to domestic violence, I mean, I had a full on breakdown in Italy that Christmas after getting out of it, like, 3 months later, because I didn't have time to feel my feelings
Right.
because I was on high functionality. I had to go undercover. I had to find a whole new home that I could house myself and my dogs, never miss a day of work,
Right.
go to court, make sure he went to jail, hope that he didn't break a restraining order, which he tried to do,
Mhm. Mhm.
all sorts of crazy ass shit. That's fear, as we talked about before. That's fear.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that does this feel different? I mean, it's all relative. And one's awareness, the difference between that was 93 to 98. This is now 2023.
Mhm.
I'd like to think that I have grown as a human.
Mhm.
I'd like to think that I have a much more expansive mindset and tools in my toolbox, so to speak, without sounding cliche.
Mhm.
I'd like to think that this accumulation of living my life up till now has proven to, like, I make a good teacher.
Mhm.
And I'd like to think that I hope I'm an inspiration. And I just hope that, you know, I get to experience the things that I was afraid of living into, that I didn't know how I could.
Mhm.
Being a pure artist, I didn't want to starve. So I
Mhm.
took a road this way. And
Right.
from that, ended up in these environments, good, bad, and otherwise. Some really
Yeah.
great, others really fucking abusive,
Yeah.
that, like, have created the barnacles on the vessel
Mhm.
that I want to shake up, get the fuck off of me.
Yep.
Others I want to go, oh, I want to sail with you on the seven seas.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that that's life. I don't think I'm any different. I think that that's just my way of sharing and being aware and being relatable. And therefore, I'd like to, my goal is to formulate something that's really true to myself, but that can help others in the process. And that is something that I've been trying to figure out all my life. How do I take all the things that I love and make an impact, a lingering impact? And that's that's always been really important to me, and I don't know why, and I don't know what that means, and I don't know that I know what it looks like even yet. I'm getting ideas,
Hmm.
and I think that, you know, doing the podcast has been one of those really great places for me to sit down with others and tap into all that curiousness that I've always had all my
Hmm.
life.
Hmm.
And I do think that because I'm a lover of life and a lot of things, there's not a whole lot that I don't find interesting to discuss. Do I want it to be where I'm the subject matter of cancer? No. But if I'm meant to be that for now and have a really authentic conversation on things that are layered around that, like, receiving rose petals or
Right.
or speaking to my dear friend, from the Netherlands and having a real honest, authentic conversation. Like,
And yeah, and who knows what and what came out, well, who knows, but what came out of our last conversation where you peeled off another layer and there's many more layers to come.
mhm.
I'm sure as you sort of come off of this high of, I just had cancer and chemo, you know, um, and yeah, and let the if there's a lesson to be learned, let it be that the most important thing is you and how you want to spend your life, and not in accordance with or according to anything or anybody, any social or any social rules or whatever the fuck we've come up with in life that makes it, if you really want to live according to all that, it makes it unbearable.
It really does. Tune in next week for part 4 as Marie and I continue this conversation that, again, I had no idea and nobody discusses. And why not? Why don't we have these authentic conversations around this really major conversation that so many people's lives are touched by, whether you're going through it personally or those that you love, and how everyone is affected, but never seems to talk about publicly. So, in the meantime, have a great week. Much love, and bye for now.